Welcome to Mercatus Radio, Episode 2. I'm your host, Sylvain Perrier, President and CEO, and joining me in the studio today is Mark Fairhurst, Mercatus' own Senior Director of Marketing.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to be back.
And at the board, as always, is Kevin Glenn. So, Mark, today we have a subject that I am just super excited to talk about, and it's the big moves and the importance of M&A in grocery industry. And I think, you know, from our experience looking at what's happening in the market, this space is just changing at such a rapid pace.
Yep.
Right? You
Absolutely,
have the new entrants.
Yep.
They could be technology companies. They can be kind of hybrid scenario. We have companies that are just fighting over share of wallet, share of basket. So there's these kind of food delivery startups, Just Eat, Uber Eats, Ritual. And
Yep.
I think every city and every state has kind of their own flavor of such organizations. And I can tell you, you know, my own experience, just like an M&A, I wouldn't call it a direct process, but just seeing it happen from afar. I can remember back in, I think it was 2013, I was working at Giant Eagle in Pittsburgh. A great company to work for and to do stuff with. We were helping them out on their digital strategy. And I remember the phone call coming in direct to the office to the former chief operating officer. His last name is Luco, and there's two brothers that work there, Joe and John. I think it was John. John's probably one of the strongest operators I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And he rushes into my little cubicle that they had given me and goes, "Did you hear the news?" And I'm like, "They will hear what news?" I'm like, "This has got to be dramatic if the chief operating officer is coming down to see me." And I can hear our guest laughing, which is even better because he knows what this is like. John's like, well, Kroger just bought Harris Teeter. I'm like, what? Kroger just bought Harris Teeter? Why would a large tier 1 grocery retailer want to buy, I will tell you, a great regional retailer, right? For those of you listening that don't know who Harris Teeter, who they are, they're headquartered in Matthews, North Carolina. I think at the time they had over 200 stores, and they're phenomenal. And they bought them, and I'm like, well, that's odd. And then, you know, you start to wonder: is it to grow revenue? Is it to get expertise? Is it to block Publix, who is slowly punching through the state of Georgia? They were contemplating opening up a distribution center, I think, in the Carolinas at the time, and they had opened up a store in Greenville, South Carolina. But nonetheless, it was an experience. And when I look at what's happening today, it's a little bit of the same, but it's a lot new. It's a lot different. And I think a lot of because this is being driven by customer demand, being driven by people wanting to survive, thrive. And so there's a whole host of reasons. So to help us really explore this subject, we have on the phone a reoccurring guest on Mercatus Radio, Britton Ladd. And for those of you who don't know him, this guy's just brilliant. He gets it. He's an independent consultant, amazing strategist, gets all things retail, all things technology, and all things e-commerce. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Excellent. Now, I always say when I think of this subject, there's these two dividing lines in the sand. And it's odd, you know, there's normally only one line in the sand, but I think in this case here, there's two. There's, in fact, Kroger acquiring Harris Teeter in 2013. And you could get a sense that the tide was shifting. So it was more so less about revenue growth, maybe about something entirely different. My experience with Harris Teeter at the time, and most people don't know this, but I actually lived for over a year in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a beautiful part of the city called South Park, not like the cartoon, completely different. And as the Canadian in the area, I didn't have that head that just kind of, you know, split in between at the mouth level, just bobbing up and down. Great area, and we had a Harris Teeter not far from us, from our gated community. And it had a nickname, and they called it the Taj Mahal of Harris Teeter. So on site, they had a sommelier. So you could go in and buy a bottle of wine, and the sommelier would recommend to you the wine. He had a recipe book. He had the recipe cards. If you wanted to get a cut of meat, you could talk to the butcher. And the experience was very different. Also, from an e-commerce perspective, they were doing, I think, well. They seemed operationally far ahead of the game of most. Produce was amazing. So you kind of wonder, maybe that's why they got bought. That second line in the sand is the news that was announced in December of 2017 would Target making the decision to acquire Shipt for $550 million US. astonishing. And for a company, I think it's reported on Crunchbase.com that I think they raised only $20 million. That's an amazing return if you were an early stage investor. So I want to ask our expert, prior to these lines in the sand, why was there M&A activity in this space? Why would one retailer buy another retailer?
Well, it's interesting. Again, we kind of touched on this in the last podcast, but the reason why retailers were avoiding each other is there really was a belief that if you operated regionally, you actually had the advantage, because Walmart was looked at as being the 800-pound gorilla that was going to be a nationwide grocery retailer. And so to avoid being swept up and losing market share to Walmart, focus on the customer at the regional level. Find a way to personalize that experience more at the regional level. The challenge was those were words to most of those executives at the regional level at that time. And although they would say we're really working hard to please the customer, they really weren't innovating. They really weren't backing up those words with action. And so for that period of time where you didn't see a lot of M&A activity, not a lot of innovative things were taking place within the grocery industry.
And so when you look in the space today and you've seen the changes, what are some of these changing that's just now driving the M&A activity through the roof?
Well, you can't talk about M&A activity today without saying the word Amazon. And I can state for a fact, with no hesitation, that when Amazon announced they were acquiring Whole Foods, executives at every grocery retailer, as a matter of fact, executives at most retailers, went behind closed doors and they asked this question: how did we miss this? How did we not see this coming? And what I always like to do when I talk about M&A is touch upon that subject to begin with. The question that needs to be asked is, why was it so many executives were surprised by Amazon acquiring Whole Foods? And when I mean surprised, there are executives at very well-known grocery retailers who are on the record as stating, I would have never thought, or I never thought Amazon would ever acquire a grocery retailer. I thought Amazon would focus on online grocery retailing. So what Amazon did was disrupt. They disrupted the equilibrium that had been in place within the grocery industry. And now that Amazon acquired Whole Foods, grocery retailers are looking to the left and right and saying, my gosh, I really can't just be concerned with the competitors I work with on a daily basis or I compete against on a daily basis. There are companies completely outside of my industry who have an opportunity to come in and make an acquisition. So what these retailers are doing today is doing everything they can to improve their competitive position. And right or wrong, what these executives believe is that if they can make the right acquisition, they increase their ability to compete. What I actually see happening is that there are executives who are making acquisitions, but they're really not acquisitions that I think are going to help them that much. And then there are other retailers out there who are still on the sidelines because what they've done is said, yes, Amazon acquired Whole Foods, but we're not convinced Amazon is going to be able to make Whole Foods be as big as a competitor as they say. And I think that is just a terrible mistake.
That's interesting you say that. So I will tell you from experience, through my business partner and through our acquaintances out there in the market, that it really takes a special type of executive committee, board of directors to make an acquisition, right? It's not so much just about an all-cash transaction, share swap, kind of all those types of things that you can do. There needs to be a very strict process of how you merge an organization operationally, culturally, and to have them singing from the same strategic song sheet, really.